I have turned on the recorder. The time is now 9:33 a.m. I'm going to call the meeting of the Venetian Community Development District to order. Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2023. The first item on the agenda is the call to order / roll call. Those supervisors that are present are Rich Bracco, Ken Smaha, Cheryl Harmon Tarana, Joe Pizarnik. On behalf of District Management is myself, Belinda Blandon. District Council Andy Cohen is present. District Engineer Rick Schappaker is present. Field Manager Keith Livermore is present. Jeffrey Thomas, General Manager of the River Club, is present. We also have Julie Cortina on behalf of Vesta Property Services present as well. And for the record, there are audience members present. Supervisors, the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remove your hats.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving forward with our agenda, the next item on the agenda is the public comment portion of the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, we will limit public comments to 3 minutes per person. Our first speaker is Jerry Quinn.
I would like to talk about the cancellation and rescheduling of the pickleball courts. Mr. Casales came to the RSAC meeting on Monday, January 9th, and claims that Mitzi told him that the city was adding 5 more acres to the proposed Laurel Park project. And instead of 9 pickleball courts, we would now have 12 pickleball courts. Therefore, what is the need for pickleball courts at the Venetian? I sent an email to Mr. James Clinch, the assistant city manager, and asked him if this was true. He responded, and I quote, "At this time, the city is not actively negotiating for any additional park property adjacent to the existing 5-acre property for the Northeast Venice Park. We are moving forward with the design of the park, which has started with the solicitation package being issued for the design team," unquote. Mr. Clinch also advised that the design is not complete and therefore the number of courts is not yet to be determined. I have a problem with Mitzi putting out misinformation to Mr. Casales and Mr. Felford. How many times has this been canceled and rescheduled, and to what purpose? It was passed by the Planning Commission and the VCPD board. Mitzi is a resident of the Venetian and is on the city council and says she can be impartial, but keeps saying things that are not true. It is also costing us a lot of money to keep rescheduling. Also, Mr. Casale said our property values are going to go down if we put in pickleball courts. Ask any realtor. What's one of the questions people ask when looking to move into a community? Do you have pickleball courts? I think everyone here at the Venetian received this Venice City lifestyle. There is an article in the January issue regarding pickleball. The second sentence states, quote, "Hailed as the fastest growing sport in the U.S., pickleball is taking Venice by storm." It also goes on to mention that both Boca Royale Golf and Country Club and the Plantation Golf and Country Club have added pickleball courts. In fact, Plantation has 4 courts and is adding 2 more. I am not just speaking for myself. I play pickleball with 12 to 15 men and women at Foxworthy. It's a half an hour away and 14 miles round trip from my home. We would like to play where we live. This has been going on for almost 5 years. When is it going to end?
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jerry, just so you know, there'll be a continuance today issued because of the complaint that has been raised about the building of the pickleball courts. So tomorrow 9 o'clock, Venice City Council is expected to give a continuance. So we already have a rescheduled date of March 14th. The reason it's being delayed is that we're waiting for a final answer from SwiftMud as to the complaint that was brought by the resident pertaining to the legalities of our permit to build the pickleball courts. We should be getting that decision shortly, I think, right?
I think within a week.
Within a week, yeah. The judge said 20 days from the time of the meeting, which I think was January 6th, possibly. And he said he would give his ruling within 20 days. As a result, the city, it would be a waste of everybody's time, and a lot of time has been wasted, I agree with you, to go to the city council and then say, and for them to say, well, what did Swiftmud say? We don't have an answer yet. They give it another continuance, and then we would push it off to April. So that's where we are. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Darlene Schubert.
Good morning, everybody. I wanted to, first of all, compliment the River Club on the brunches that have been happening here. First of all, the chef and the staff are unbelievable, and yesterday I witnessed something that I've never witnessed before, and that was a server helping one of our residents who was on a crutch get all of her food and bring it to her table. I thought that was really something and says a lot for the people who are working here, as well as the fact that it's not just the same every week. They do offer some variety, and it's always a little bit different, so it's very nice to see. I guess the other thing I'd like to talk about is the pickleball courts. Based upon the fiasco we had on Saturday between the Arts and Craft Festival, the tennis functions, and the 100 people that came for a luncheon, there was no parking, period. If we are trying to promote this club, why take away more of its parking? It makes absolutely zero sense to me it's like you're going in two different directions. I'm not against pickleball, don't get me wrong. I'm against where you want to put it. It takes away from this club again and the ability for us to grow. So if there's an alternative spot, if there's an alternative place we can put this, I think that that's what we need to think about, because it's definitely not in our best interest to take away another 14, 15, 13, I don't care how many spots it is. We don't have enough parking as it is. People are parking on the street when there's a function here. And that happened on Thursday for our mother's house luncheon as well, because of tennis and everything else that's going on. I mean, you've got to rethink this, because to me, it just is not going to work to help our growth here. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. The proposal that is being considered would affect 13 parking spots.
Right.
2 additional proposals have been presented to our civil engineer. One, I believe, takes 19, and the other one possibly more than that. So considering what you say about adequate parking, we have more than adequate based on what the city says we should have. And on occasion, a few times a year, it does overflow. There's no question about that.
2 times last week, the same thing happened, so it's not too
Huge luncheon, 140 people, and a lot of them from outside the community.
You've got a lot of people involved with tennis, and I think you need to take it into consideration what we already have for activities, and not try and put something else in the same place.
Okay.
That's gonna just not add to this club. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final speaker is Tyler Cassell. Mr. Cassell?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. As long as I'm being talked about this morning, I decided to sign up. My quote, again, is kind of taken out of context. What I said was, when I came to the board here, I said that I attended a meeting given by Mitzi Fielder called A Conversation with Mitzi that she had on December 1st, along with about 50 other people. At that meeting, she said that the city was in consideration to buy, she said the city was in negotiation to buy another 4.9 acres to add to the 5 acres that they already had. Now, if that's changed, I don't know about it. I will call James Clinch myself. I know who he is, so I'll call and talk to him myself. But if that's changed, I don't know about it. At that point, she did say, if they were going to add another 4.9 acres to the 5 already, they would try to add another 3 pickleball courts, making it 12. So that was my comment at that meeting, just for clarification's sake. So it was a public meeting that I was at where she made these statements along with other statements about why the helicopters, why we hear helicopter noise and where they were landing, and about the solar water pump north of Bella Vista and so on. In addition, I just want to say, I want to compliment Jeff. I've come for brunch a couple times in the last few weeks, and I think the brunch has been marvelous. So I want to compliment you on that. And secondly, I also went to the Tiki Bar opening, and I want to compliment Jill and everybody else that was involved in that. because it was a very big success, and I think the Tiki Bar looks great. Just to add on to Darlene's comments, when I came up here Saturday, and the parking lot was full. I could not find a spot. I counted 12 cars parked along Bella Vista. And that is going to happen more and more as we get more and more events in this club to bring in revenue. So again, the loss of 13 spots, even though it's permissible by zoning, is really not enough. We find ourselves looking for parking around here. So anyway, just clarification of statements. Thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you. There being no further public comments, we're going to move forward with our agenda and close out public comment at this time. And we're going to move forward with staff reports. Rick, do you have anything to report?
I sent out to everybody, I don't know if you got, I got some extra ones here. Could pass them out there. That's for the roundabout, at the last.
Please silence your phone. Thank you.
At the last meeting we had, we talked about seeing what we could do with the roundabout. And if you looked at the design, I did find the original plans. The design appears to have included a yield that is coming into from the west to the east. So the configuration is set up for that to be the yield. The other three, if you looked at the standards, the first page of that is from the MUTCD manual of uniform traffic control devices. It really is not set up on the other three legs for the yield. So what we could do, it appears, is we could make the one coming in the yield, and the other three would need to remain a stop unless we do some major work out there. So if you want me to move forward, I'll reach out to the city and make sure they're happy with that also. And then we will need some more striping and some signage to go with it.
Rick, before we go spend more money, what problem are we trying to solve here? I know there's stop signs.
Nobody stops at the stop sign. And what I said at the last meeting, because I live on the street. I live on the street, but I see cars going through it this morning as I'm walking up here. No question about it. I don't know about having a stop sign in a roundabout we have a big one down on Jacaranda. There's no stop sign there.
Oh, no,
It's a yield sign.
I agree they shouldn't be there, but they're there.
Yeah, I know.
So why do we need to spend money to replace them with more striping and more sign? I'm just saying, it's just.
Well, I think Rick's giving us an option of just doing the one that's on Veneto, and keeping the stop signs on Portofino, Bella Vista, and coming out of here.
Do we need a yield sign at all? Does the MUTC require a yield sign there?
The original design had nothing there at all. No stop sign, no yield sign. That's the the page that didn't have anything there at all. But I think to be, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've done enough association with those guys. You don't want to put something there that's not going to be safe. So either some signage is highly recommended. Now, if there's a stop sign there and people blow through it, if you enforce that'd be up to, if you have the officers out here or whatever. But I think for your safety, you want some signage out there.
Previously, when the landscaping was higher, and truthfully, some of the bushes, you couldn't really see a car, but now that's not the case. Now you have a clear view of what's coming around. So,
And that was discussed, I think, back in 2013, and that was the main reason why it wasn't even considered, was because your view was blocked by the landscaping. But now, like Rich said, you're good to go if you wanted to, but I would still need to just run it by the city engineer and make sure she's okay with it too then.
We're not talking about a big cost on this. It doesn't sound like, I mean, we just swap out one sign for the other on the post and it costs us a little bit of money to talk to the city. Is that kind of the sum of it?
Pretty much so,
Cost?
yeah.
Well, there's an item in here today, we're dealing with signs.
Signs, yeah, exactly.
So we're
yeah.
gonna be considering purchasing signs anyway. And
The one thing I wouldn't want to do is encourage people to speed up on that circle, and you know what I'm talking about. People do regularly blow through the stop sign at Portofino. Portofino in the circle is not even a suggestion to stop, so.
You do have that crosswalk immediately west of that, so,
Yes,
you know, the stop sign hopefully will make some slow down a little bit versus the yield, but again, that'd be your call.
I'd like to get an answer from the city as to what they would suggest, be it yield, be it circle ahead, whatever, as opposed to stop.
Well, the
On that one.
MUTCD has your typical signage,
Yeah,
so we
keep
would,
right.
I mean, they would tell me to make sure we follow that. That's basically the gospel for.
Right, they don't really have jurisdiction over our roadway, but for a suggestion.
Okay.
I just don't understand. It's there, it's a deterrent.
Well, is that one of the signs that's slated to be changed on the proposal?
I believe it is, yes.
So it's slated to be changed anyway, so why not change it to something appropriate is what I'm saying.
Why are we changing it?
It was blown down. We've got, I don't know, there's, in your proposal, there's a bunch of
Yeah.
signs that are
Yeah.
being fixed, replaced
Right.
due to the hurricane.
So it has to be replaced anyway, so let's not, what I'm saying is let's place it with something that's more appropriate. And we don't have to do Portofino and Bella Vista and the exit from here, but we can put a yield sign or something other than a stop sign on Veneta.
I mean, I think it makes it more consistent with what you see when you drive through roundabouts all over, so I am fine with changing to a yield sign.
Okay, we'll reach out to the city engineer and make sure we're good to go, and I'll bring it back to you at the next meeting. It looks to me that the minimum you could get away with is just a little chevron, the painting that typically go with the yield, so it could be the yield sign and the chevron, the paintings.
Okay.
And if you want to get a little more, you could paint yield in the road and all that, but that's, you know, what you see on that is the minimum.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
And then on the lake bank, they were supposed to finish that work by Friday. They had some equipment failures, so they should be out here now to finish up, so all that should be done. And that's really all I had, unless anybody's got anything for me.
Any questions for Rick?
just one quick one on the whole reclamite question. Is that still percolating in the background somewhere? I just like saying reclamite.
Yes, it is. Jerry, I know he's back there somewhere. He was.
Yeah, to go.
Here we go. He had asked me to meet with David Moy.
Yes.
And because they wanted to look at that. He wants to go with me when I drive through, which I'm hoping maybe within the next 2 weeks or less that I'll be out here. They're trying to budget for that. Now, I don't want to tell them to come in and just do all in case we have some that is really not, it's too bad to do the reclamite, and then you're just kind of throwing away some money. So I'm going to go through, look at all the streets and all the ones that are the candidates. I'm going to quantify and see what the cost would be.
Okay.
For all
So
that.
when you said that, you mean the Reserve Study Committee?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
got it,
Yeah,
okay.
we discussed it at the last meeting,
Oh, okay,
and
Thanks.
David had sort of done his own street-by-street
not surprised.
analysis.
Yeah.
Also, you got one.
So he wanted to accompany you to hear your thoughts on the same
Okay,
subject.
thank you.
Good. Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Andy, do you have anything to report?
Nothing other than the investment issues we'll handle a little bit further down the agenda. But I'm glad to answer any questions. I think Belinda circulated the final on the Vesta contract, so that's over and done. Thank you.
Jeff, do you have anything to report?
Good morning. I have distributed my executive summary and identifying the key indicators. We did have a very challenging month in beverage, cost of sales, as well as revenues. We are taking it very much to heart. Beverage revenues and beverage cost of sales continue to be an area of concern. Specific areas have been identified and are being addressed, including inventory control, appropriate recognition of promotional beverages, and sales items routed to inappropriate GL codes. We've identified more than $2,600 in beverage sales items and $3,000 in room rentals routing to food revenue GL codes to date. An IT consultant is coordinating efforts to ensure sales items are routed to appropriate GL codes, and we're reinforcing all areas of cost control. January monthly highlights. Well, first I'd like to touch upon the survey. We have received three lists of suggestions, submissions from various committees, and they're going to be consolidated with Vesta suggestions, and we anticipate that we'll be able to present a draft to the board within the next 10 days. And January highlights, Thursday community theme nights continue to be highly successful and well attended, recently featuring authentic Greek cuisine, Italian theme nights. The recent Dance the Night Away event was attended by more than 170 members and guests. The Sean Brown Band provided exceptional entertainment, and they will be performing here again within the next few weeks at an upcoming event. Intensive and continuous planning and coordination, demanding attention to detail, have culminated in a highly successful soft opening of the Tiki Hut. I feel like I'm patting myself on the back there. The Tiki Hut continues to be a popular gathering spot for casual lunches, dinners, game days, and evening entertainment. I was out there on Friday evening. We had traffic coming and going, but we had in excess of 100 people out there at particular times on Friday evening. The event schedule includes the expansion of Thursday night community theme night dinners to include Cheeseburger in Paradise coming up this week, Italian night the following week, Flamingo Luau, Prime Rib night, and Mardi Gras. And our signature events include Chef Brian's seafood cooking class, which is going to be on the 25th, happy hour all-nighter running till 9 o'clock. High tea, February 9th, Valentine's dinner dance on the 11th, and trivia night on the 24th. I'll be happy to field any questions you have.
A question. I know that the survey is going to go out. I can't get into most restaurants on a Saturday night. Asara's is jammed, and that's right down the street. Half an hour, 45 minutes for Chinese takeout on a Saturday. You could go to downtown Venice. Finn's is jammed, Casariano's, up and down the line. I think we're missing the boat by not offering something here on a Saturday night. Other than, I mean, I was at the dancing night away, it was great. Coming to Valentine's Day, I'm sure a lot of other people will. Chef's doing a great job. I think we're closing our eyes on revenue that's out there. People are spending it. I'm spending it. These folks are spending it someplace, right? And I'd like us to try it and take advantage of it here and see what happens.
We agree with you, and our initial approach to Saturday nights, as we are culling the negative banquet activity that we've been experiencing, I think we're down to 11 upcoming events that were pre-booked that we're going to be executing. And then beyond that, our programming has been to try to offer some sort of special attraction on Saturday nights, whether it be obviously the traditional holidays, things like Dance the Night Away, happy hour all night long, trying to add a specific theme to Saturday night dining in an event to try and create some additional enthusiasm amongst the members. I agree, and I know Julie does as well, that we're missing the mark on Saturday nights, and we intend to continue to offer Saturday night dining in some form. And if we are missing the mark by theming Saturday night activities, then we will gladly offer dinner on a regular basis to the membership.
My opinion, it doesn't need to be with a band and a dance. It doesn't need to be that. That's nice once in a while, you know, and we'd spoken about that before. The Dance the Night Away is great. The upcoming Valentine's Day, I'm sure it's going to be an excellent night, but I'm just talking about a dinner night. You know, and if you want to have a guitarist or you want to have some piped in music or something like that, it doesn't, we don't have to rock the walls. What we got to do is fill the seats. And I think that Chef Brian is getting an excellent reputation. It's all over the place. I had a conversation with the chief at the golf club the other day about a whole other issue. He brought up the chef, okay? So word is getting around. It's getting around amongst people in here. They will come, but it doesn't have to be rock and roll night.
So if I.
Understood.
One quick comment, the dining and social committee social and dining also talked about this at length. And I think one of the things social and dining, is it social and dining or dining and social?
Social and dining.
Change anything you like.
All right, I can't ever get that right. But that committee is also looking at what how many covers there are on every night to look at, does Wednesdays make sense anymore? And then how many covers does it take to break even, so that we can have a metric. So if we open on Saturdays and we only get 10 people, is that okay? Then do we keep opening on Saturdays or not? So I think there's a few other little data points that committee would like to look at as well before pulling the trigger on Saturdays. But I don't think anybody disagrees with.
But you got to
We
try
gotta
it now.
try it.
You can't
During the season.
You can't wait until May and June.
Right.
Because we do lose, not a tremendous percentage, but we do lose a number of people. You know, the snowbirds go back to wherever. Right now, we're full. I think the time to try it when it works is now.
Yeah, I would just also add, because I think Cheryl makes a great point, and I don't think we should make the decision on doing Saturday night dining based on what's happening now. I think we need to try it and then understand the metrics, because that's, if I really would love to see a more stable set of metrics that we get. Like I missed the event type breakdown of, food and beverage in this month's report. So that's one thing I would love to see, is a standard report. And it's not just, in my opinion, it's not just dollars. It's also penetration of households. If you've got, let's say, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, 5% of homes spend more than $500 or more a year in revenue. If we can show in 6 months or 12 months that 10% of homes are spending that level, or 15% of homes are spending that level, then we know it's working. So I think I don't think we should have 1,000 data points, but I think there should be enough that help that. But I'm not sure that Vesta can do that reporting without us meaning the board, giving them some specific goals in mind, whether it's revenue and or penetration, 2 or 3 goals.
And I think,
Excuse me. We talked about that in the strategic plan.
We did,
There are some specifics in there.
yes.
There's data points that we've asked for but never received. Part of the problem is we don't have the regular routine down. We don't have metrics in place. We still have issues with the P&L that need to get resolved. And your time is being taken by chasing these things down, unfortunately. So we're not able to get the other metrics that we've asked for. The survey is another opportunity,
Yeah.
but that's probably now going to be 6 to 8 weeks before we get results from that.
I can start presenting information on cover counts, et cetera, for specific nights. I do know that Friday nights are increasingly successful. We're doing 50 to 75 covers routinely on Friday nights now for dining, in addition to the activity that we're doing out at the
But are the
TV.
reports, Jeff, tracking all that? I mean,
They
just
are
set up
not
a
at this point.
format,
Yes, I will.
and
I will.
every week, just make a note of it. So you've got a report, you've got a trend that tells you, and you can share that with them.
Right, and I think that's what the committee is also looking for to know. I mean, you have to have so much staffing to open on a night. So does it take 20 covers to break even with all that staffing? Does it take 40? Does it take 50? That will also help us evaluate Wednesday nights, right?
Versus
Right.
Saturday.
Exactly,
Exactly.
which I think is one of my big concerns is I don't want to add another night if one night's not working already.
Yeah,
Then
replace it.
maybe we replace it. But yeah, we just need a little more data to understand so we're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks.
That
I mean,
works, though.
That's another.
yeah.
When
Yeah,
is
right
that?
now, we have no.
Exactly.
I had a resident ask a question about turning tables at brunch. Do we?
We do. We routinely turn a dozen or more tables at lunch. We
Brunch, I'm sorry.
brunch, excuse me.
Brunch.
We routinely turn at least about a dozen tables.
But it isn't the policy not to turn the table.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
I just have a few quickies. So do you have access to data that will tell you what penetration is? You know, the Pizarro spends X amount, per year. Do you have that level of data in the data sets that you have?
I haven't searched for those particular reports in Club Essentials, but I can't imagine they're not there.
Okay. I was just curious, I think maybe we'll also work through with the reports, what exactly we can get out of the system, because I think it would be helpful. I just have two quick things. On holiday weekends, like holiday weeks, or maybe it's a general question, is there a standard for manager on duty? Like if it's a Saturday at 4:00, is it, if an accident happens or something, is there a procedure in place for who's in charge, if something happens?
We always have a manager on duty on weekends and holidays. And it is whoever is the senior manager who is on staff on those days.
Okay, so there's always a manager on duty then?
Mhm.
Okay, of some kind, okay. The last thing is just a really quickie. A couple people, and I don't know if you all have gotten the same email I did, a couple people have asked about whether the food vendors can park somewhere other than in front of the building. I'm not particularly bothered by it, but, and I don't know whether you all are particularly bothered by it, but,
I don't want them
You
taking
mean
up
the
parking
main
spots, if that's what
lobster?
you're asking.
yeah,
But
so,
parking in front, they're not taking up any resident parking spots.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've already heard that issue this morning.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I kind of want to stay away from that.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to raise it.
You know what, I heard the same comment, but I think I'm gonna talk about the lobster truck since it's sitting there. But I think sometimes if it doesn't pull up far enough and people can't scoot through around the back of it, that's the problem I
maybe
was
that's
told about,
nice.
because then nobody can access the front drive to drop somebody off.
Okay,
So I think it's just reminding them to pull up far enough so people can still make the loop. That was what I heard.
That makes sense.
got it. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for Jeff? Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Keith, do you have anything to report?
I'm speechless.
Wow.
Any questions for Keith?
Just a quickie question.
Jill's not.
You know me, I always have questions. It's terrible. You all are gonna be sorry you like it. We got an email yesterday from a gentleman on Cipriani. There's a Medjool date palm that's sort of it. And I don't think I saw it on the tree stake list, but I can't even read it.
It's not, it's gonna be staked up.
It will be, okay.
Yes, I've had L&P out there, and they did send us a bid for,
Great.
a grand to restake that and push it back up.
Got it, okay. And then I just wanted to sort of publicly call it a conversation you and I had about the lights in the front. You know, you and I have been talking about, you're working, I think, with FPL on
FPL, yeah.
potentially about a little bit more light at the front. Because
I'm trying to get to another set of, at the far end down there, okay? Trying to get anything done, as you can see, with the light poles that are still laying on the ground. FPL, they have their own agenda and they don't. And so, you know, we have a work order to get the ones that we have done
right.
placed, and they're supposed to be here the 27th of February, so they say, to fix them and replace the ones that are down. I have made the request, but, you know, the person that's supposed to get back with me doesn't, and
Yeah.
they flip people all the time, and it's so you just got to catch them on the right day with enough money to bribe somebody, I guess.
I just wanted people to know that, you know,
Oh, yeah,
it is
we're
a little
working
dark
on
out
it.
there, and you're working on it.
You
I
bet.
just wanted to kind of have that out there in the ozone.
You bet.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure.
Last time, Keith, just, we spoke about the trash that was at the end of Citadella that somebody put there. You haven't heard anything from the city about that, blaming us, have you?
No.
Okay, good.
Because I have pictures of
The
the
vendor.
vendor that was dumping out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. All right, on my end, just as a reminder, supervisors, our next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 13th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. I do have a couple of things to discuss with the board. I distributed a package with a lot of information, which is pretty much at this point, just for your information. This is in no way, shape, in its final form, but I will go through some of these things just so that the board has a little bit of an understanding where we are with FEMA and our process. So last week, I did hold additional meetings with FEMA in our Fort Myers office, which was with a new team that is going to be dealing with me on recovery scoping for 4 other districts that also have submitted requests for public funding through FEMA. So this team was a little different from the team that has been assigned to Venetian. I think I mentioned to the board that I partnered Keith with Carlene Perron-Mayalka from Great Hawk Landing, which has been a great process for us because they're a team, pretty much similar districts working together, and hopefully they'll be subject matter experts after all of this is done. But just a few updates on new things that I did learn. Originally, we were told that the contribution portion would be 75-25. If approved, that has been actually corrected based on what I was told by the new team. So anything that was done and is approved by FEMA within the first 75 days from the date of the storm is 100%. Anything after the 75 days is 75-25. The district has 6 months to complete any emergency actions that need to be taken. That's 6 months from the date of the storm. 18 months to complete any permanent repairs. So it's important to note that the 18 months is a deadline, and if we do not meet that deadline, then we have to file with the state so that we can be granted an extension. There was a lot of back and forth discussion regarding stumps and stump removals. I was notified by this team that that FEMA will not cover the cost of irrigation. So this is something I am putting out to the board, as we were told by the team we're working with to include the cost of the irrigation repairs in our damage inventory, which is what I have done. But according to this team, they do not foresee as irrigation costs something that FEMA will reimburse. And this could result in a delay when submitting the damage inventory, and it could take longer process-wise. So once we approach the deadline, the 60-day deadline, as I mentioned, 60 days is from the date of the recovery scoping meeting, which we held first week of January. So Prior to submitting the final damage inventory, the board will need to decide whether or not you want to move forward with including those irrigation costs or not. So I'm bringing that forward so that you're aware. Anything over $10,000, they are going to want multiple quotes on. I did mention that the actual cost that FEMA will reimburse, if approved, for preparation of this entire process is 5%. Dropbox submittals of photographs, they will not accept, so I will have to upload every photograph that they have requested onto their portal, along with insurance documents, all contracts, all invoices. We have pretty much, we're pretty much done with the process of what has been paid so far. I have all of our proposals in place. There are a few things I'm going to cover today with the board that you probably should be aware of, and a few things that we're going to look for your direction on. I did mention that if grounds were disturbed as a result of any stump removals, they have to be restored to their original condition. So if you open up the packet that I gave you, I didn't staple the pages because I didn't want to create a lot of confusion, but the first 2 pages are pretty much, this is a general ledger of what's been paid to date.
Belinda, I have a quick question, I'm sorry. You said they must be returned to their prior condition. Do you mean with a tree?
No,
You
no,
mean just?
soil
Thank
and
you.
earthwork.
Sorry, I
That's
just wanted
it.
to make sure I was clear.
That's a good question, though, because I had the same question. I thought it was the tree, but no, soil, earthwork. So this is general ledger paid to date. This is just from the general fund. Okay, I'll cover a little bit on the River Club after. The next worksheet that you'll see that is in black and white. This worksheet, I've been copying Rich on my communications with LNP. I can copy the rest of the board members as well if you'd like for me to send you a copy of the correspondence. Given that we are having to submit so much documentation and FEMA's requesting so much detail on all of the invoices, this represents every invoice that I have on hold in our queue that I've reviewed that I have questions on. So, and based on further contract review, I did pose some legal questions to Andy based on some of the wording in the contract. As it seems, LMP is going to have to revise many of their invoices based on some of the things that they have been billing for. I did submit a complete summary, which would be this one, and then I still have to send Scott Carlson what has been paid as well. I'm sure he has that record, but what we have paid them is listed on this worksheet that I provided. I have not heard back from him as of right now. I think he's probably trying to wrap his head around the 2-page worksheet, but I'm sure that we should be hearing back from them. As soon as I hear back from them, I will notify the board on what their response is.
So this is the paid.
That is paid.
That's the paid,
That's
and this
paid.
is proposal.
This is what they have, what we have pending. So
Pending,
these are
okay.
invoices that they have submitted. We currently have them in the system. I have not paid these. I'm holding these until they can be revised or LNP can provide the detail that's required.
So the 95,000 is what was booked through December
Has been paid,
on the P&L,
paid,
and then the 140,000 are pending.
pending, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're approaching 250,000.
Correct. Not including repairs that we still have to cover, one of which is signage that is on the agenda for today's discussion,
And River Club?
and the River Club items, which we'll talk about as well. So now I'm going to cover the damage inventory. I couldn't put a watermark on this, but please understand that this is a draft. I can't modify FEMA's worksheet. I tried, but there's no way I could just put it as a draft watermark, but this is a draft. This is in no way, shape, or form a final document. So you can pretty much see what we've done to date here on the damage inventory. This team actually told us that we did not have to outline every single location of where we had stumps and trees removed. So the following pages attached to the damage inventory reflect the GPS locations of the street signs and the GPS locations of the stumps. This is a lot of work, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is not easy. It is not simple. I added tabs to the FEMA worksheet and I asked if they would accept it in an Excel format attached to the damage inventory. They said they would. So instead of detailing it on the actual sheet, there's a worksheet for each category in the actual total worksheet. So the number that you see there is, it's not for hurricane, common area, roadway debris removal. That still has to be determined based on all of these invoices that are being reviewed and issues that have come up contract-wise that need to be addressed by LMP. Irrigation damages, this is based on what we've paid so far. We will need to have that discussion eventually as to whether or not you want to proceed and include that as part of your damages. Signage, mailbox damages, these are the mailboxes that were damaged. These are the address that they correspond to. They are fine with the addresses that we've provided here. Temporary signage is here. Replacement of signage, the amount I have included in here is the $16,700 that was quoted by Likens. In the agenda packet today, what you do have is the Build Signs online proposal. That proposal totals to $15,306.80. The total varies here because they have taxes, but we're tax exempt. Keith, does this include install or is this just,
No, it does not include install.
okay,
Likens does.
Likens stuff? So Likens' proposal was $16,700 and it includes installation. There's some line items that I highlighted on the actual damage inventory. These are some that we're still working on. Fencing damages, this is something Jeff is working on. The tennis court canopies, this is something that's being worked on. Lift station fencing, I still need pricing on that one, which Keith is working on. The River Club roof repairs, this is something that I have a portion, the tower repairs. Jeff provided me with a proposal from Crowther on. Are they also giving you, is the same company giving you a proposal for any of the tile work repair from the roof or no?
I will follow up with Miles on that
Okay,
this morning.
okay.
On the clock tower repairs, that can't possibly include that copper thing that got squished, does it?
I didn't see that in the estimate from Crowther, so I think that that's something I'll have to review with Jeff. Because from what I saw, I can try to open it now.
That would be
Do
awesome.
you have that? No, you don't have it with you, Jeff?
I do not have it with me, but my understanding is it does include it.
It does?
Does.
Yes.
Maybe they just didn't detail it out. Lift access, straighten the metal flashing, fasten the metal flashing, straighten the top leaning tower on top of the big dome and fasten in place using all the existing parts, tread bolts and plates coming through the bottom inside. Does that answer your question?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
it didn't specify
Sounded
anything
reasonable.
added, so it's existing, but, I mean, this is a steal, to be honest with you, compared to what I've
Sure
seen
is.
price-wise.
That's why I questioned it.
Yeah,
Belinda, if I may, my
Sure.
understanding is that they're going to use the existing panels. They're going to just pound them out and to like new condition and use the existing panels, which will also prevent having vast contrasts between the metal.
okay,
Thank you.
good. So we'll still need, I didn't highlight the roof damages and the water intrusion issue, I have to add that here as well. So water intrusion is something I added. So if you look at the first column, I'm sure the board would recall FEMA has different categories that everything falls into. So if you see A, that's category A, category G, category C, I can share those categories with the board if you'd like. There's an entire worksheet from FEMA outlining the categories and where everything needs to go. Percentage of completion, as you can see, some of these are not completed. We're not 100% completed on recovery efforts as well. As you know, we still have stump removals that need to take place, and Keith is getting proposals to do that work, as well as a few other items that have come about. Now, moving forward, we do need to discuss our final repairs. So as I mentioned, we have 18 months from the date of the storm to move forward with final repairs. We can submit proposals based on information being provided by vendors for consideration, but we will need some sort of a plan to finalize some of these repairs. On the landscaping part, I don't know how much FEMA is willing to cover tree replacements going forward. So that is something that we do expect to discuss at this week's meeting. So we are meeting in person this Thursday.
May I just ask for clarification? I think I heard you say that if we choose to include irrigation repairs in what goes to FEMA, that it could slow everything down.
Correct.
Okay, so that's something we're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to
jury out.
decide whether or not it's not worth it to pursue
Yeah.
on your damage inventory.
But are you getting conflicting information on that?
Well, the original team told us to include it because technically the irrigation was damaged by the uprooted trees. This team, to be honest, I felt more comfortable with this second team because they were very knowledgeable. And I do have another district that had several uprooted trees, a lot of irrigation damages, and they flat out told me that they didn't foresee as the district's cost being approved for irrigation. I can touch on it again with them at this coming meeting, but
Can we submit it separately?
it has to go as part of your total damage inventory.
Submit the damage inventory and then submit an addendum to it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Are
I
you
think
gonna
once
get
she
the
gets-
same team
I'm
this
just looking
time?
for a way to get around,
Well, once she gets a reading, that will give us a guide.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we were working with the same team for,
Yeah.
It's gonna be a problem.
but because they're FEMA representatives stationed everywhere around the state, that's how they pretty much assign locations to them. So these representatives are stationed in Manatee County, in pretty much in Palmetto.
and you get the same answer from other districts that you work with.
Well,
with
for
respect.
Venetian and Greyhawk, I was told one thing, but for these other districts, I was told something else. So, I'm working with this team on 4 separate districts. So, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of change when it comes, I'm hoping the program delivery managers don't change, but so far I've seen changes when it comes to some of the representatives representing mitigation on the phone or different departments within FEMA. Everybody who calls in will be new. You're not just meeting with one person. You're having a meeting in person with about 3 FEMA representatives and 4 different people on the phone.
So you'll keep asking the question?
I
until you
will.
get a- Okay.
Maybe
I
a
will.
different answer.
I will.
If you get the same answer twice, go with it.
I will. I mean, I was pretty prepared for these next meetings because I already knew what the expectation would be. So we were able to cover a lot more in these meetings. But I don't expect not to be a subject matter expert after this.
Out of curiosity, have you heard anything about after a number is, I don't even want to pull a number out of the air because it's going to become a rumor, but, after a number is, financial number is determined, a reimbursement number, the time to which we get payout, no sense of that.
At least a year.
I mean,
I'm hearing.
At least a year.
That's what I'm hearing. It's not my own.
It really,
Thinking about cash flow, that's all.
I think it depends on your production of documentation. So if you have all of your ducks in a row, all of your correspondence and all of your invoicing, everything that FEMA requires, and it's exactly what they required, it should, lessen the process. But if you're having to make changes and going back and forth, asking for all sorts of revisions, then obviously that's going to cause delays.
They're difficult on an individual level, they're difficult to work with. It took me 7 months to get a refund on excess flood insurance on a property that I own that had double coverage. And when I found out it had double coverage and that I should be reimbursed, from the time all the documentation was sent in, it was 7 months before I got a check. That's on an individual. You talk about a big place like this, it's a different story. So it's going to be a while.
So going back to the expenditures, we typically do pay everything out of the general fund and then reimburse back from whatever fund, the board designates. But on, in this case, for example, the River Club, we'll need direction as to how you want to handle the River Club expenditures.
In terms of what's a repair, what's a
What's a repair,
Right.
what we should, pay out of the River Club fund, what, Vesta should know to pay from the club, from their fund, or whether or not you're going to proceed and approve. I mean, we can bring these to you for your approval. That way it's on the record that you approve, that it's a reserve expense. This way, we're not back and forth trying to guess where to pay these items from.
I think we need to be consistent in the way we generally have done it. If it's an item from the reserves, it is, and if it's a repair item, then it is. And there has to be consistency.
Yeah. Well, we've ran across an issue, and it's not really an issue. We just need direction as to where you want to pay it from. Because Cheryl, you know the process with the reserve committee reviewing the expenditures. In the past, when there were allowances in the reserve for repairs, a lot of repairs were being paid from reserve. And I think the committee wanted to do away with that. So what we would need, obviously, we're the processor. I should not have to go back and forth with your managing entity. That's not my role, that's not my job. The board should have a representative, which in cases like this, Rich, you're the designated representative for the River Club, or the items be brought to the board. These are expenditures we feel should be paid out of reserves. The board has a discussion and you give staff direction on it. We have it on the record. When the check request comes in, I have it on record. We process it and that's it, we're done. This way you don't have your two managing entities going back and forth as to what one feels is a repair, one feels that it's going to extend life. I mean, it's just counterproductive at this point, and we do need for them to have clear direction on how you want to proceed with items that are being paid out of the reserve funds.
Well, Belinda, we talked about that at the Reserve Finance Committee meeting, the last one, and the specific items that were in question. So if you've got more of those kinds of questions, why don't you just funnel them through me and I'll work with the committee.
Well, I went straight
We'll give
to
it a
Jerry on this because I wanted to be sure. But even if I funnel it straight through you, Rich, Ken, the typically what has happened in the past is when management thought that something should be paid out of the reserve, we have it on record. So that way it's approved, we issue a check. When the committee comes back and has a question about it, we can go back and say, well, this was approved by the board on this date and this was the action taken. And it's up to you as a board as to how you want to decide. If the board wants to designate Ken as the decider, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. You can sign off on it, you can approve it, I'm fine with it. So as long as we have something on record that says this was reviewed, it was approved, this is a reserve expense, we can go ahead and issue the reimbursement. Because
Rather than you or Dan or somebody spending time doing it, if you bring it to either my attention or Jerry's attention, we can follow up. As I did with this last one, I had a conversation with Paul Savage. I tried to understand exactly what the situation was. And once you have that information, it's easy to make the decision.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm willing to take the time to do that. I don't want you to take.
Yeah, I asked Jerry in particular to these expenditures because I don't know what the mindset of the committee was with the replacement that was included for 2021. Because the way I understood it at some point, and this was prior to Jeff's time, so, the way I understood it was the system was outdated and that the entire system in itself required an upgrade and a replacement. So when I spoke to Jerry about some of the concerns I had based on what was listed in the invoice, it just seems you're replacing parts of an existing system.
Yeah.
But, it shouldn't be incumbent upon myself
I agree,
to go back and forth with your management company. So
I agree.
at this point, because I don't feel comfortable signing off on a payment or checks or anything that hasn't been reviewed by the board or discussed, within your spending authority, I think the best route would be for, if there's an expenditure, for example, that Jeff says, I've looked at this, I've spoken to our vendor, this is gonna extend the life of our equipment by 5, 10, 15 years. This should be a reserve expense. If the process is, take it to Ken so that he can, review it, approve it, and then Rich, you sign off on the
Fine.
invoice, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Fine.
But we do need to have a process in place, that way we're not all going around in circles.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
There was a discussion regarding these two invoices in particular because of, there was lightning damage, I believe, and it's not Vesta's fault that the invoice was received so late. The vendor did not invoice on time. So now, it was submitted for reimbursement from reserves. I replied back and I said, I see this as a repair, but I could be wrong, bring it back to the board for discussion. But honestly, it's something that you need to decide what the process will be going forward.
I think we're telling you that I'll take care of it.
Okay?
Okay.
So going forward, Jeff, when you have, you have a check request, you feel that it's a reserve expense, present it to Ken. And then if, depending on what Ken's review is and what comes back, then we can just have Rich sign the invoice, submit it to me for reimbursement, and I'll submit the reimbursement.
And just to close out the items in question, I had a conversation with Paul Savage. Interestingly enough, he said that system was upgraded 5 years ago to the most current modern system you can have. He said he doesn't know why there was 21,600 in the reserve study for last year. Nobody ever called him to discuss it. He said the boards that were replaced will last, 20 years. They do extend the life of the system that was replaced 5 years ago. To me, and Jerry, and discussion with the board, with the finance committee, we agreed that they were reserve items. And I talked to him about the fencing and what you want to do out here. The latest quote, Keith, that you have, he said that has nothing to do, the existing system will still be used when we replace the fencing out there, so that the boards that were replaced will still be in use. And the one that is fried that you do need is a different one.
Jeff needs.
So, well, yeah, but you had talked about it. So I think we have all the information. It seems to me that those are reserve items, and whether we do fencing or not is a separate question. But he said whatever we do with the fencing, the existing system will still be used as is. So, okay.
So there were the two from Universal Access, which I will go back and I will tell Vanessa to process as a reimbursement, given what we've talked about today. And then the pool chlorinator invoice I had questions on, because originally I thought that the pool chlorinator damages were hurricane related. I think Dan was confused in his email because he said that they were not. Jeff confirmed that they are hurricane related.
Okay.
So in a case like this, this is damage. It's part of what your reserve is, even though it's not falling into this current fiscal year. I think it was I think 2024, 2026 probably, where you're supposed to replace all of the equipment. So at this point, this would be something that you would direct us. Yes, go ahead and pay it it's not a big expense. It's like, what? I had it here, $4,200. No, this is.
But the committee felt that was below the $5,000 threshold and therefore should be expensed.
Yeah, so this is $35.49. So at this point, we would need to know, do I reimburse for this amount, or should they post it on their balance sheet as hurricane damages? Because we need to make sure that that is quoted to a separate line item. It's going to be an unbudgeted line item, but anything that you do not approve to be paid out of reserves will have to show in the River Club Fund budget.
Well, it should be hurricane damage, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if it was,
If it was caused by the hurricane,
Yeah.
then yes,
So it should be on your balance
that would be part of this.
Right.
It's
somewhere.
on there.
So it should be included on the damage sheet.
It is on the
It is
damage sheet. It is.
It is on here.
It is. So Jeff sent me the backup documentation. It's on the damage inventory. At this point then, Jeff, I think you should probably have a discussion with Dan. Have those repairs paid from the River Club Fund if they haven't already been paid. And then they should be coded to hurricane damages with a no budgeted line item. So you're tracking whatever expenditures are being paid from the River Club Fund.
Same way you're doing it in the general fund.
Yes.
And as these,
If Dan needs a conversation about that, I'm happy to.
Ken, as
It's just a
these,
separate line item on the P and L with no budget.
Yes, sir.
as these invoices come to you on the committee, I'd like to be aware of them because ultimately I'm going to be signing on them and I'd like to know what I'm signing before I sign it. So,
Just don't respond to
and I
that.
had that email conversation with Dan Armstrong over the weekend, asking him that same thing.
Yeah.
You know, to be included, and he responded appropriately.
These would only be things that he thinks should be reserved
Correct.
items.
So going back to the flow of information, there's a lot of information. As you can see, this is a lot of work. We want to make sure that you understand what's happening behind the scenes, but we don't want to inundate you and confuse you. So at this point, issues that are related to reserve expenditures, does everybody want to be copied on those emails, or do you want us to just report on them when we meet? How do you want us to flow, freely flow the information so that the board has an understanding of what's going on?
Personally, I think if Ken is approving reserve expenditures, Rich is signing off on them, I don't need to be included in an email chain. I just need a report at these meetings of what's been expended.
I think that would be,
I agree with that, yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
a better way to do it.
Okay, perfect. And then I did ask Dan if, when the River Club financial documents are sent, I don't know why they were only being sent to you, but they should be sent to everybody. So that way everybody receives it at the same time. I'm gonna check, maybe his distribution list didn't, automatically update everybody's email. But this way, when he sends the reports to Vanessa, you receive the reports at the same time.
Well, he's been sending to me because I've been getting them since I've been on.
Yeah, but I think he said he was gonna update his distribution
Yeah.
list, so maybe when he did it, it just didn't, compile all of everybody's email addresses and didn't send to everybody.
Well,
So
he
I'll
had-
ask him to be sure.
he had a misunderstanding about sunshine laws from what I interpreted from the emails back and forth with him on Saturday. He felt that he could only send the financials to one supervisor. I said to him, there's no sunshine law violation here, none whatsoever, because first of all, you're not a CDD member and you're sending information to all of us. There's no violation whatsoever. And he commented that he's more of a numbers person than he is aware of sunshine laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that was straightened out on Saturday in about 2 or 3 emails that went back and forth. I hope it is.
Okay.
But of course, as we know, you board members couldn't respond to each other.
Right.
I mean, I can also ask Vanessa to send it out when she sends the financial, but we kind of did away with that because not this board, but the prior board, there was a lot of confusion with the difference between the final statement and
Right.
what was just being sent by Vesta. So it's really up to you as to how you want to receive the information. If you want to receive it when Dan sends it, we can have Dan send it. We can ask if he can send it.
I asked
Or if
I
you
asked
want to
him to-
receive it with the whole statement, we can do that as well.
I asked him to do that moving forward.
Yep.
What's happened has happened,
Okay,
but moving forward, let's be sure that it's done.
Yep.
This one.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
sounds
He
good.
agreed.
Thank you.
So are there any questions for me on the damage inventory, on any of the documents that I've provided?
After looking at this, I'm surprised you're still speaking to us. It's a tremendous amount of work and thank you.
Oh,
Yeah. And I want to thank Andy for helping me with this process.
You're doing all the work, not just responding to questions, and I'm glad that it's it.
Yeah, and Keith has been, this is a team effort, guys, and, Jeff is working on his end. Joe, I don't know if the committee can help Jeff with the roof pending repairs. We do need to have a proposal to put in front of FEMA sooner rather than later. And if it does exceed $10,000, then we'll have to have more than one estimate, obviously.
You know, Jeff and I can talk about that. If you want our group to work on that, we can help.
Appreciate that.
Okay. All right.
Belinda, I have one question.
Sure.
At the very beginning of your report, unrelated to expenses,
Sure.
you said our next meeting was on February 13th at 9:30. I have a note that we're having a workshop that
You're having a workshop, so this is just your regular
You didn't
meeting.
want to show up at 8:30 for nothing.
8:30.
You have your,
Too.
you have your board workshop before the meeting, and then we're having your regular meeting. Just as a reminder, I will not be here for your workshop. I may be because I normally get here earlier than the time of the meeting to set up, but
It's not required.
it all depends on traffic.
So
Did you
logistic,
advertise?
I think we did.
that's what I was gonna ask. And I was gonna ask whether it will be Zoomed or YouTubed.
Well, somebody's gonna be keeping minutes, I assume, Keith, or who are we gonna have keep minutes?
Somebody on the board will keep
I
it.
can do
Yeah.
it as the assistant secretary, one of many.
Thank you.
I'm fine doing it.
Okay.
Do you want to advertise it on, do you want to have it on the YouTube link?
I think it should be myself. I think it's transparency, but that's just my personal view.
All right, so Keith, you'll have to be here through the workshop.
It's public anyway, so.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Right, and then I'll do the sunshine presentation at the
The
27th.
next one.
Thank you.
And if you need anything from me before the workshop, please don't hesitate to let me know. Any questions for me, damage inventory
Or otherwise.
or otherwise?
So, one of our favorite topics is the ADA and the challenges it causes for our website. But I wanted to ask if we could consider putting the strategic plan and some financials on the website. I know you said there's a cost involved. Do you have a sense, is it like $5 per page or something? I'm just curious what the magnitude of the cost is. 'Cause
I don't think we've exceeded our document counts ever, so
Okay.
I don't think that'll be an issue.
Okay.
And I think they changed it too, didn't they? We'll give
You're
it a little
thinking, yeah,
more latitude.
yeah.
I'd love to see both. I don't think we need, an all singing, all dancing file of the financials, but I think, for example, 12 months of financials
12
might be
months?
helpful. Yeah, so those are the two things I thought, because hopefully we'll be talking more about the strategic plan in the coming months.
Okay,
Probably good to have it there.
so just to be clear, everybody's okay with adding the strategic plan and the monthly statements to the website? Okay. I'll tell Carrie so that she can start adding them monthly as she gets the financials, and then she'll go ahead and upload the strategic plan.
And the only other thing I was gonna ask you about, because we touched on it at the last meeting, was the Allied Universal contract is gonna come due, but on page 18, there's like a rate thing. So I guess my question out of curiosity is, if the rates are gonna change, do we have that in the budget for the rest of this fiscal year in the general fund, or do we need to adjust that?
You would need to adjust it,
Okay,
but obviously any rate change is subject to your approval.
sure, okay,
So
understood.
they did present Keith with initial amounts, which were incorrect because they included sales taxes and stuff that needed to be revised. But this is something that you would need to discuss for your upcoming proposed budget and, decide whether or not you do want to approve a rate increase. We have had experience with Allied coming back and increasing rates. We just recently completed a contract renewal at Greyhawk, actually. Similar situation, they came back, we need to give increases to our staff, we can't find people. So there were, in this case, several options were presented, and the board approved an alternative option to having the nighttime person fully on staff. Instead, they now have a service that you can have someone just come to the site for a few hours versus having someone permanent. So I asked Keith for Allied to revise their proposal, removing the sales taxes that they provided, including to provide that option for the board to review. Because it eliminates the cost of having a vehicle permanent on site. You're paying $1,000 more or less a month for that vehicle. And it's way less to have them just come and do patrols on site. So that'll be an option for your consideration.
Yeah, and this particular community was interested in seeing that they could retain quality personnel, so they were,
Okay.
they were receptive to a little bit of a price increase. Of course, that makes sense, but
Right.
it did to them.
Thank you.
That's
Take a
very
5-minute break,
You want a 5-minute break?
please.
All right, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break at 10:48 a.m. On at 10:59 a.m. and we are back on the record. So any other questions for me?
No. Have we already discussed G in as much as the resident survey, in as much as Jeff touched on that?
Jill wanted that item added to the
Oh,
agenda.
okay.
I don't know if she wants to make any, if it's the same thing or,
I wanted to just expand on it a little bit, so should we just
Okay,
do
we'll
it
wait.
together? And I
We'll wait-
promise,
we'll wait
you
till we
know,
get
I'll
to
be efficient.
okay. All right, so we're gonna move forward with our agenda. The next item on the agenda is item number 5A, which is the review and consideration of the investment policy, which was sent to the board under separate cover. Andy, do you want to cover this item?
Sure, I can. Board members, this was prepared by Dana. And I went through it and just wanted to make sure that they were tracking the statute properly, and there were some typos and other issues in there. I think that when I distributed the resolutions, I distributed my marked up version. And then Dana did a review and incorporated my comments, and then I made a few final tweaks and sent it out to the board over the weekend. And I believe that that's the one that you have in front of you on the table here today. Ken had run some copies of it. So as I said, it was a document that was generated by Dana. My chief goal in going through it was to make sure that they were tracking the statute properly from 218. And I felt that they did hit the right prerequisites. And then, as I said, I made just a few other changes I saw. You know, they had some provisions in there citing to executive director or finance manager, you know, positions we don't have, citing to some sections that obviously were pulled from another policy they had done, things along those lines. So that being said, I'm glad to answer any questions. Jumping ahead a little bit, the resolution that I prepared, and we can certainly discuss that further when we get to it, but this is attached as an exhibit in the docket.
So Andy, I have two questions. One, on page 3, under investment objectives, and this is just for clarity, but the very first paragraph talks about funding of operations in addition to accumulating long-term reserves. Then when you go to the next sentence, it says the investment objectives of increasing the long-term capital reserves. So do we need to say there the funding of operations and the long-term capital reserves? I was just concerned that it spoke to both buckets of money in both sections. Or on top, as in a suggestion, you could say the operations, funding of operations and capital reserves funds together comprise the portfolio of investments. Here and after called the portfolio or the investments or something, just to show that we're talking about all of them.
Well, it says in addition to accumulating long-term reserves.
Right, but then look at the first sentence of the next paragraph. It only talks about long-term reserves. That was my concern. It's like it seemed to be disconnected.
In addition to accumulating long-term reserves.
Well, because short-term investments are gonna
They're going to be in here.
take a different, yeah.
But this is going to include short-term and long-term. That was, see, this is exactly the conversation I had with myself.
Okay.
And then I thought I
So
needed to bring it.
what change,
violation there.
what change would you like to see, Cheryl?
I think the easiest one would be to say in the first line of the second paragraph, the investment objectives of increasing the funding of operation, the funds for operations and the long-term capital reserve.
Okay.
It just keeps them both together.
Certainly have no objection.
Thank you. And then my second question is at the very bottom of the page, standards of care.
Yes.
In the resolution, it says VCDD chairman or vice chair in his absence. Do we need to say that at the end of this paragraph A?
Yes.
Thank you. And I think that was it. Thank you.
I had just a couple questions, and maybe for you and maybe for, an investment policy is not something not something I had to deal with, and even though I was working closely with the capital markets, I didn't have to deal with it. Under scope, the first sentence refers to Investment policy should apply to funds under the control of the Venetian Community Development District in excess of those required to meet current expenses. I mean, in my thinking, current expenses are 12 months worth of expenses. So it's, I
Not
guess I was,
necessarily 12 months of current expenses, it's what you guys define.
So that's whatever Belinda draws, basically,
Okay.
right? So if we decide it's a 30-day draw for her, that's the current expenses.
okay,
Right.
okay.
Right.
All right, fair enough. I just wasn't sure if somehow that set up a construct that we didn't want to have in there. There were two things I'm gonna confess I didn't really understand.
And I might be affected. Go ahead.
So I'm
I
just
didn't
gonna throw the
prepare this.
question out there.
Keep in mind, I didn't prepare.
Authorized investments,
What page you on?
I am on page 5, so paragraphs H and I wasn't entirely sure, is that boilerplate stuff that covers statutory limitations? Is that what
Yes.
those are there for? Okay. Fine at the end.
I can't tell you that I completely understand them either. I won't sit here and
Okay,
tell you that I do,
fine.
but they do track the statute.
No worries. And then on the following page, page 6, it says K says other investments authorized by law or by resolution of the CDD, VCDD board of supervisors. It struck me as very broad and somewhat potentially risky. Do we need that in there?
I think that it is good to have as a catch-all. And certainly our resolution, the way I drafted it, provides that we would not be authorized to do anything that's in contravention of
Okay.
applicable law.
Okay, so not going into beefsteak mines or something. Okay.
And they still have to follow the,
Okay.
safety.
Okay.
Yes.
Approved, that's standard of care, okay. And then the term, again, on page 6, restrictions to board authorized investments, this is restricted investments. Does that mean prohibited investments, or is it, to me, restricted and prohibited
Prohibited.
are two different things?
To me, it means prohibited.
Okay. All right, and then, ding, ding. So, two other quick things. So on page 7, after it talks about portfolio composition and the 1 through 6, I guess FLGIT is Florida Government Investment Trust, but it says the portfolio will be evaluated against board-approved benchmarks annually by the VCDD board, which I guess we still have to set, don't we?
I think it's this composition up here.
So that is in fact the composition that we are
Setting
setting
now,
out.
Annually, we have to
but
make
you
sure we-
can review it if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't have a,
Against the portfolio composition.
yeah, okay, fair enough.
So it's really, are we at these percentages in the portfolio? Have we exceeded
Understood.
anything?
And is there or should there be benchmarks, or a benchmark, or benchmarks, I would say then, against that? So what are we measuring this against? Is there a government standard of, return?
No.
There's not.
Not that I'm aware of.
Maximize.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Maximize with safety and liquidity.
Yes,
Yes.
that is clear in the statute.
Oh, I know. Okay, and then, sorry, gang. On page 9, under internal controls, it says the VCDD is responsible for establishing a set of written internal controls related to this investment policy. Is that incorporated in here and I'm just missing it? Or is that a new thing we have to do?
I think that's a new thing we have to do. I'm not sure
Okay.
what Rosetta has in that regard.
Okay.
Wouldn't
Because-
that be like check writing, check authorization, those kind of things? I think it's the controls
Okay.
related to how do you get money out? And that is something we have to talk about because we have
Okay.
to provide guidelines for Belinda
And
on how many days.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we've adopted internal controls in the past. And that's what I was gathering that this would refer to. And because it also, as I'm sure you saw, it calls for the auditors checking to make sure that we're complying with our internal controls. That's what I envision. I think we adopted those by resolution because Rosetta at some point put that forward for all of your districts.
And in general, is it contemplated that the Reserve Study Committee is still, touching this in some fashion? Because obviously this speaks to the chair and the vice chair, but do you contemplate your committee
Yes.
kind of remaining
Doing it?
involved?
Yeah,
in
we
this?
actually talked about that at the
Okay.
last meeting,
Okay.
where Dana has said that they would provide quarterly meetings or updates to the board.
Okay.
And I think we
Mostly
said
input.
for the first year,
Right.
we should stick with that, with the whole board getting a quarterly update. But then after that, maybe the finance committee getting the quarterly update and the board getting an annual update, once we're comfortable with Dana and we.
I see. So then if you might, in theory, need to change the committee charter, that wouldn't need to happen yet because it's contemplating the first year coming to the
The-
board.
We would have to change the committee charter because there's no mention of investment
Exactly.
policy in the charter.
Yeah, and then the concomitant, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I beat that one to the ground. Right. Thank you. I read it.
Do we need a motion to accept?
Well, I think that by adopting the next resolution, we'll be able to take care of it.
Okay.
With the, as amended with the changes that.
Correct.
Cheryl.
Correct. And we can make that part of the motion. when we're ready. So if we want to move on to the next.
Yes.
This is, at the last board meeting, the board discussed preparing two separate resolutions. One for adopting the investment policy and laying out some of the procedures. And then there was, we decided to adopt a separate resolution with regards to the retaining Dana. So I prepared it that way with two separate resolutions. This first one, 2023-03. Historically, we had a resolution back in 2017 that outlined that we would have no investment policy, but it outlined some of the work that Mr. Lusty was doing, and gave him authority to make certain transactions and such. So we definitely wanted to review and update that. So I updated that, and beyond that, this resolution takes care of adopting the investment policy, which, as we said, we will say as amended. And I lay out the officers who would be able to be the point people for moving the funds around. And as we talked about at the last meeting, there's separate sections for the general operating and reserve funds, River Club operating reserve funds, that's one section. And then the bond funds. The bond funds, I reverted back to what we had in the earlier resolution with just those limited investments. Because that was, at the time, what was good with the trustee. And I didn't hear anything, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear anything at the last meeting that we wanted to make any changes, in particular there. That our chief concern was with those other funds. So that's the way that I prepared this. Left the section in that was in the earlier provision about Rosetta, which understandably they would want to have memorialized. Then, as I said, I updated the authorized individuals. Rather than naming people, I did chair and vice chair so that this can evolve as the district progresses. And again, I'm saying that we're superseding 2017-03. We're providing a copy to the trustee. And then that section 6 is the one I just recognized before, Jill, where I'm basically saying that anything we do here, of course, if it is overruled by either applicable law or the indenture, that will
Right.
govern.
Got it. Understood. Thank you.
I'm glad to try and answer any questions about this. But once you're ready, we'd just be looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2023-03 with attachment of the investment policy as amended here this morning.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The next resolution, catch up with you, is resolution 2023-04. 4. Right off the bat, I'll just point out that in section 1, we need to fill in 2023-03. But this resolution is the second one that I just referenced, so that we could do it separately. This is adopting the Dana Investment Agreement, an agreement which, as we pointed out at the last meeting, is terminable for convenience at any time. So just so we're clear on that. I had no changes specifically to the agreement, but there were a number of blanks that needed to be filled in. And Jerry and the committee members went through and completed that information. And we were trying to remember whether that was distributed to the board or not. Did Belinda distribute that to the board members?
I don't remember.
Okay,
But Jerry brought his copies, I don't know.
yeah. If you just want to pass it around.
Who got that originally? Is it the same one?
It's the Dana agreement, but
Right.
it's the
Right.
the blanks are filled in.
Right, yeah. Well, no, they were filled in on the one that we got a couple meetings ago.
I don't think
They
so.
were because I asked them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so,
They were filled in by Dana. We, at the
Yes.
last meeting, went through.
Oh,
and
okay,
We
got
made
it.
a couple of
Understood.
changes.
Okay.
okay, so then, if you're comfortable, it would be a motion, when you're ready, to approve resolution 2023-04 and the Dana investment agreement as completed by the Reserve Committee.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further
Discussion?
discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Before we leave that subject, I wanted to just take 1 second, Rich, if I may. And I wanted to just share with you all, my fellow supervisors, why I voted no on Dana at the January 9th meeting. And my bad for not telling you why. Because when you said, Ken, that you had kind of come around, I have to confess, I had too. My objection, and probably my brain was just frozen, but was more around the process. I had felt like, and maybe because I'm new to the board, I felt that the documents that we got were already, things were fairly far down the track. And I had gone back through the minutes of the Reserve Study Committee, and I couldn't find any information at all about working with Dana. So I guess I felt a little bit like a horse being shoved at the fence, where I felt that he didn't have enough information on it. So in retrospect, I think what I would have said was, as a board, I would like to have seen us discuss it more before we brought in a third party, and maybe even have an RFP and talk to more than one investment management firm. But, it's water over the dam.
That was actually happened when I was chair.
Oh, it
She
did?
did.
We did an
She said she
RFP. That's what I said last, because
Sorry
this has
about
been,
that. I
no, it's
missed
okay, it's
it.
been going on for a long time.
Okay,
So we tried to find this company,
okay.
just sort of checked off all the boxes. They were the only company we
Okay.
found that actually had the background they have.
Okay,
And these guys finished it up and did a really nice job.
okay.
I was liaison at the time,
Okay.
so I was aware of all of this going
Yeah.
on. And Dana is, I don't want to say it's like a one-off kind of company, but they're very unique on what they do.
Yeah, I
Very,
could
very
see,
unique.
I could see that.
And we did,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure we were going to find a company that was doing this.
Yeah,
But with continued research on the part of the rest of the committee members,
yeah.
Dana came up, they flew in from Wisconsin, I believe, and
Waukesha.
made a presentation to us.
Yeah, okay.
So,
That's helpful, and really just in closing, and I did get to Mark Middlebrook, although only by voicemail, to say, my no vote was not against Dana or against, against the principle of it, especially once I heard it. And I, in closing, just wanted you all to know, 1,001% support of it. So,
thank you. Mark Middlebrook came on the committee relatively recently. And my major reason for putting his name forward as a committee member, because again, I was liaison at that time, was because of his background.
yeah.
We had been talking about this type of investment, and here comes this guy who had done this for 35 years. He's a practicing attorney in the state of Florida, but he worked in the financial end. And I said, this gentleman can add so much to this committee because of his extensive background, and he did.
Okay.
So
Great, thank you.
glad you brought it up.
Okay, I'm glad you're.
So moving forward, the next item on the agenda is item number 5D, which is the consideration of the build signs online proposal for street signs and posts. This is behind tab number 3 for your review. We briefly touched on this while we were talking about the damage inventory for hurricane. The amount that I included in the damage inventory was the proposal presented by Likens for $16,100. This proposal does not include installation. Keith, do you want to give an overview on both?
As you all know, we use Likens for our mailboxes, and they're expensive. They're about $1,300 to replace a mailbox if you have to replace the whole thing. And our signs, our street signs are basically the same material. All right, so the proposal that you're seeing for the $16,000 is the replacement of the signs that were damaged or completely gone. So we can add a yield sign to one if that's what we're going to do. But the other company, when I talked to them, they were, about $1,000 less, but they're not going to install them for us. And that's a huge, process in itself, and getting everything. They have our specific signs. They know what we have. They know the Venetian. And so I think Likens is, the company that, if you want to go with them. But
Did we have Likens in the last board packet? Was that the quote that was in the last one?
that's what you push forward to this
That's
meeting.
what I thought,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Well, installation is,
Huge.
you're talking about a lot of work here.
Yeah.
Lot of work.
So I think we're better served by having Likens do this job.
Between what Likens did straightening some of them and Dan did they straightened the worst ones. Dan was able to straighten some of the ones that weren't as bad. Okay. So, they'll get right on it. We should have, new signs. Well, I'm not going to put a date.
So if we approve this, this all goes under hurricane damage except for the yield sign, correct? That should be on a separate invoice?
I'm going to say that's because we're changing a sign that was damaged during the hurricane.
So it was damaged?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, that we will.
We would just need direction on the board as to funding wise. Do you want to pay this out of the general fund or do you want to pay this out of the reserve? You have replacements for signage phase under the reserve, but it doesn't start until, it's not slated actually until, I want to say 2026 is the first batch. Hang on, I had it open, but I closed it.
Why wouldn't we pay it out of reserve since it's hurricane damage? Just curious.
Why wouldn't we put it in the same place with all the other hurricanes?
2026.
What is that?
2026,
Is it-
That's
So it's
when the
operating.
first
phase of replacement.
first phase of replacements was slated at $39,420.
So sorry, I should have talked louder and at one at a time, my bad.
It's okay.
But I was asking Ken, why wouldn't we put it in reserves if all the other hurricane damage was in reserves? And he pointed out that it's not, it's in an operating line. So I would think it would come out of the same operating line that all the other damage is in.
I mean, you can reimburse it later if need be, but for now, we've been paying everything straight out of the general fund.
Do you need a motion to go forward with this?
We do, I'm just gonna give everybody just a brief caution. Street signposts are taking about, I would say 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks or more. So it's taking over 6 months to get streetlight repairs. So if you are asked, you should be aware that even though you've approved the expenditure, it's gonna take some time for the final delivery and installation to take place.
Make a little cardboard sign.
I'm going to start standing on the corner.
Okay.
With all the
With the sandwich board?
Yeah.
We need those guys.
Well, in the meantime, we have signs in the appropriate places. We're just looking to,
There's some
Yeah,
streets
Dan.
that we're missing, that, you know, the actual street sign is gone, but, you know, that's in this proposal as well.
So do we have a motion to approve the proposal presented by Likens for $16,000?
So moved.
$16,700, which includes installation.
So moved.
So, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving forward, we now have item number 5E, which is a review of the draft access policy and post orders. In addition to the consideration of the resolution regarding the security procedures, this is being item number 5 for your review.
I took the ones that we had of record, which were fairly old, and the underlined or strike through you see there are just my first shot at proposed revisions. So if I got something wrong, or if you have something to add, absolutely, let's have a discussion. There's no magic to it.
Okay, we're good. I got magic.
Go for it.
I had a problem with a fair amount of the language. It just got a lot of very wishy-washy.
Okay?
And for example, in the overall policy, to monitor the community environment for the benefit of residents, I don't even know what that means.
Well, it was my attempt not to guarantee safety.
Correct.
So,
When this first came up, I had made the suggestion to promote a safe environment, simply just promote.
that's fine.
Because to me, monitoring, that's very vague. Not that promote isn't, but at least it's directionally.
I think, yeah, I think I like that.
So you're saying to promote a safe environment for the benefit of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then, I don't want to nitpick on grammar, but in the
Do it.
login procedures, I think on each of A and B, for example, the permanent access list as a resident, guest, or household service provider, shouldn't it be colon? Record entry. The first line is what they do, the second line is what we're asking them. The first line is the subject, the second line is it's just grammatical.
Can I go one
But more-
further on that?
But go ahead.
I think the first sentence I can't make it make grammatical sense.
I didn't either.
Permanent access list contains the residents, guest, and household service providers? Maybe, I can't figure out the as in there.
I think when they go together, it makes more sense. Permanent access list as a residence, guest, or household service provider. All you have to do is record entry and allow access.
So it should be a colon
Then it
after
needs a
provider.
semicolon.
No, not semicolon.
Then it needs
Okay.
a semicolon.
Okay.
Okay,
I
that,
said colon.
because that's where I was struggling. Sorry to interrupt.
I wrote, I put this in.
Keep going, Ken.
Under B, C, B and C, at the very bottom of each, you change should to may.
Right. I wasn't sure that was occurring all the time, so that's why I changed it to May.
Well, I don't know if it's occurring all the time either, but it should.
If you want it to stay should, then absolutely.
I don't know how you
So
feel about it, Keith.
But what happens if there's only one person there? They get in their car and they leave the gate unattended?
I don't think there's ever just one person.
Well, no, there's not ever just one person, but they'll never leave the gate. The
Understand.
gate does not become unmanned
There is
unless
always
they're,
more than one.
So is it occurring? Is the roving patrol following people?
when they come in, and sometimes they will, if they just say, let me in, that they will follow.
And they should.
Okay. We can
Right.
it should, no
Right.
problem.
Especially after all the
Same thing on the next
break-ins
one,
over
Yeah.
CO.
on C.
Got it.
In that same paragraph, I can just throw it in, the second to last sentence says, if visitor still wishes to enter, please log in identification of individual and license plate number. I think that's captured most of the time by camera, isn't it? Well, sometimes I guess if there's pooled servicing equipment on the back, maybe that covers the license plate, I don't know.
Sometimes, but most of the time it's.
The camera's gonna capture it,
The camera's there to capture the license plates.
but so they're not individually writing down license plate numbers.
They drag it to the program where the people is going, they capture that.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Just
I
says
see.
have a record of in the photo.
Now,
The record.
remember now, if you're also looking at changing the night, when you look at Allied's proposal, and if we do go with just a rover that shows up for a couple hours, the language that you just said should, there will be nobody here at times that should do that. If the gate just says, if somebody says, I'm going in, come on in.
But should is
Not
not
must.
always,
It's not must.
and it's not must.
You could say should as practical, should as something like that.
Should.
As
It should.
could be.
We'll leave it at should.
Whenever practical. Is implied.
You have more? Wait, there's more.
There is.
Do you have more?
Post orders is separate. You want to go to that?
Yeah, keep going.
Don't go there yet.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Wait a minute. No, post orders, never mind, never mind.
Okay, so any other changes from anyone else to the access policy before we leave that document?
The gate intended to inform everybody about the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't think that ever happens, to tell you the truth. But if we had a sign there that said 25 miles an hour, are we covered?
Sure.
This is in item E.
Is there a sign there? There is.
I don't know if
isn't
there is, but
When you come through the gate, is there a sign on the right that says 25 miles an hour?
Yeah.
I think there is.
before the gate, there.
Must
before
have
the
fell
gate,
down.
I think there is.
Before the gate, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they
It's
do,
there, or the
when a
gate is
vendor
the
comes
gate.
in that's new or whatever,
They do.
they hand them a paper that
Okay.
has, please park with the flow of traffic, don't flag, block, and those type of things. And it has a speed limit on there.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
leave it.
I have another question on the post, are we on post orders?
I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
It's the same thing.
Are we on post orders now?
We don't have questions.
Okay, I think we're on post orders.
Okay, then we are.
Go for it.
Two quickies. On E, patrol duties. Is that just damaged irrigation and CDD property, or is that any damaged irrigation?
Should be any.
Any
Yeah, I think it
private
is.
property damaged
Yeah, because
irrigation?
they do violations as well. If their irrigation is running and that address is not, they're not supposed to be irrigating that at that day, they take a picture of that as well, and that goes to the POA to be,
Right, or if someone has a fountain instead of a spout,
Right.
instead of a sprinkler, they should also report
Yes.
that and let the homeowner know. Okay, good,
Right.
thank you.
Any.
It should be any, yeah. And then shut down irrigation when assigned, can you help me understand? Is that when you tell them? Is that what the sign?
well, it was in the past that with our old station, that you couldn't do it remotely, you couldn't shut down the pump remotely. And so when they had so much water, or when it rained a lot, the guards had a standing order, if it got a quarter of an inch of rain, they would go down and shut the pumps off. Okay, and then, whoever the field manager was at the time would go back in or send her maintenance guy down there to have them turn back on the next day. So that's what that's referred to now. With our new pumps, I am able to shut down from anywhere or start back up anywhere in the country,
Unless you don't have signal.
unless I don't have a signal. And
Good item.
there is that.
Then you may
There
assign
is
them.
that. So should this just say shut down irrigation as requested by field manager? Rather than assigned, because I don't think any one of us should call and say, shut it down. Okay.
First line, It says other dues, I think it's supposed to be duties.
Oh, but the very first
Yeah.
sentence. of
Yeah,
the
that would be the
duty.
first line.
Okay,
And then it says, these may include, why do you have, why? May include but are not limited to, why may?
is there others?
Is that covered
It
by
says
the?
but are not limited to.
We can just change it to, I can take the may out,
I would.
Okay.
Again, wishy-washy.
no problem.
I had a couple things, unless you're still rolling there, Ken.
Not really. Go ahead.
So I want to ask, L says check River Club, which I think includes walking around the pool, that sort of thing. Does that need to be iterated in here, you know? Is that necessary or is there, yeah,
I mean, I don't think it hurts. You
yeah,
know, they have what's called a Helios system, and they go through different points on this building.
okay.
And then we do find the occasional unlocked door.
Mhm.
And so it's, yeah, I think it should be in the orders that happens.
Okay. So how, do we need to, what's the language that we would put in there, just,
Right now it says check River Club to ensure all doors are secure.
all right.
Including but not limited to pool area? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm with you.
I just-
I'm with you.
Yeah, they walk around, they go through the pool area and look.
I'll
Yeah.
ask,
It's implied.
Yeah,
No, we're
okay.
taking out the golf club and the welcome center?
I
Yeah.
assume so.
Yeah.
No, we still hope-
They always have checked the golf course, just as a courtesy. And have at times found unlocked doors or, you know, the occasional, golfer that didn't make it home after the 19th hole. So,
Well, we have a nice relationship with Heritage and they with us, so. And are we still taking the keys for the maintenance
Yes.
shed? You're still doing that, right? What that means is that in the morning, when the first person that comes in, it's somebody at the guard gate that gives them the keys, they can then open the maintenance shed on and on and on. So it's like a handshake thing, and I would encourage us to still do that. Again, we have a nice
Do
relationship.
you want to leave the golf club in?
I would suggest that we do.
yeah, the welcome center, I mean, it's not really, there's nothing a whole,
Not getting
really
unlocked,
there.
yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to get into, there has been some discussion about, we had somebody park in there, in that parking lot, and the guards saw them park in there, and so they went over to question, and I get, it became a little bit of an issue. So, you know, I don't want to patrol their area,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but checking it, I think it's great.
I think we can continue to check the doors.
At the golf club?
Uh,
And-
Yeah, as
and the welcome-
we've been doing that regularly, so I think we should.
Continue.
And the welcome center too, or are we taking?
Yeah, I would say the welcome center as well.
Yeah.
We should. It's,
I agree.
they want to, in my meeting last week, it was expressed again, we want to be good neighbors, and I think we want to be good neighbors back.
Okay. I'll put-
Which I agree, but should we just let them know or make sure they're okay with that?
Well, we're just not going to change it.
So we're doing it.
They know that we do it.
But it's,
I'll let them know.
Okay.
yeah, I would let them know, make sure they're okay with it, because it is private property. That
Yeah,
implies
okay.
some level
All
of
right.
liability
If you tell
if doors are.
Kelby that we're going to continue doing that, or whoever.
There were a few other things I was curious if they check for, like light outages. Are they the ones who notice if a mailbox light is out or a
They do a light
street
report.
light is out?
They do a light report every evening.
Okay, and should that be?
And that's given to Dan when he comes in the morning,
Okay,
and then Dan fixes what's on the light report.
okay.
So should this say prepare light report every evening to be submitted in the morning? So that if something changes, they all know they have to do that.
It should be comprehensive. I completely agree. It's an all singing, all dancing thing. Yeah.
Say prepare mailbox, light
Oh,
report.
yeah, I think it's generally a light report, isn't it? Oh, not just mailboxes in general, it's.
It's
like-
all the lights.
Right. And they also do the overnight parking thing, don't they?
Here at the River Club?
Yeah.
Well, if there's a vehicle that doesn't have the sticker in it from the receptionist, the car can be towed. There's
Okay.
enough signage out there for,
Let me back up for a second. The light report, prepared light report to be submitted to field manager? Is that what that's submitted?
it can, or it can, Dan picks it up when he comes in the morning, my maintenance supervisor, and he goes and starts knocking out whatever the situation is with the.
Can we just say prepare light report daily?
Yeah,
And
that
then
sounds
we can
good.
figure out who picks it up.
That works. That works. And the overnight parking thing, I guess we need to capture that in here as well. Does that include people parking on the street overnight when they shouldn't be? That goes to the POA.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
don't
overnight
do-
parking in general.
Isn't that D? Look at D.
Oh, it is. You're right. Sorry. My bad. And I'm just curious, two other quick things, because I think I've seen them checking the back gate and also occasionally driving the perimeter on Laurel Road. Is that something that they routinely?
Well, they'll go down Laurel Road and go to the park
Yes,
and check that area back
Yes.
there. We butt right up to the park.
yes. They do that. Okay. Totally.
Fishermen.
Thank you.
So, if we're ready to proceed, then we have a resolution. Resolution 2023-02, which, by the way, has the wrong date in the last whereas. Should say, kept today's date. But be a motion to adopt resolution 2023-02 with the revisions as referenced today. I'll transmit those to Belinda.
I'll make that motion.
Too late.
Ken made the motion, is there a second?
Everybody's in
I'll second.
on that one.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Moving forward, we now have the update regarding the Tiki Bar completion.
Yeah. Is it really here?
All right.
Where's Ernest when you need him?
It's on the camera.
All right, so I'm gonna turn this one over to you.
Just trying to get here.
Okay, can I?
It'll be a while.
This is the, so for your reading enjoyment, 1, 2, 3. Belinda and Jeff and also Steve kindly provided information. Oh, and Jeff, let me get you a copy here too. So you actually have the complete picture of the all-in costs, much of which has already been paid out, to my knowledge. So the construction, which has not been fully paid out yet, the initial cost was $173 and about $6,200 in change orders. And then the bar equipment came in. You'll still see a gap in the equipment out there. There's an under-the-counter fridge that was added that's going to save actually the servers. I think a lot of steps, won't it, Jeff, by having that under-counter fridge there. And then, quite a bit of finish in terms of the, the TVs and the ceiling fans and ancillary work like the landscaping, et cetera, at about $37,000. And then the furniture. So you see the bottom line number there that comes in at about $329,000 all in, including the furniture. So I wanted you to have that so that we're all on the same page in case you get asked what the number is. Now I wanted to use this agenda item to quickly go through. There are a few additional things that we're going to need to ask for, I think, to fully complete the project. The first is Jeff, I think, discovered that there's a need for probably some augmentation on the lighting out there. We actually have them out. I was out there with Bob Raffato from the Facilities Committee Saturday. We kind of tootle through and see what's out there. I mean, I think there are some things that we can do to augment the lighting using what we already have. The pool lights, right now tennis court, we turn on light number 1, lights on court 1, it's actually pretty good. We probably have uplighting on the trees. It may have just been cut, I guess, during construction, so maybe that's something that, you also might be able to look into. And I think we also have some can lights in the porticos, both along both sides of the gym, if you will, that can provide a fair amount of ambient lighting. So what I wanted to get the board's view on lighting, what we'd like to do is first investigate those things, and then if it's determined that we need a little bit more, what we would do is bring in a professional who might be able to suggest if there is something else we need. Probably mostly for safety would be the first priority. Is there anything that we need to ensure that we have proper lighting out there? So that's,
So you're talking about lighting, let's say, along the walkways or something like that?
yes, yeah, walkways. And, if you look at the perimeter, for example, the fence line, there's not a lot of lighting there. And a question is, where the lounge chairs are on the right as you look, where you have the old furniture there. It's pretty dark over there. Not that we want to brightly light that up and pull everybody over there either, but we kind of want to have it concentrated.
Do
But
you want to have something that's on continually, or, for example, would solar lighting do it?
it's a good question. I think it's something that we would ask. If we
Something
find that
that
we
more.
need more, only then would we go to a vendor to ask about additional light. I'm really just trying to sensitize you guys that we may come back for additional lighting. Same thing on shade. The facilities committee has gotten a couple estimates on shade. I know a lot of people are interested in having the retractable awnings, but it's not completely clear what additional benefit they're going to provide if we get them. Is it just helping out some people who are sitting at the tiki bar? Is there enough of a bang for the buck if we do retractable? And because the sun moves so much over the course of the year, where do we really need shade? So I think we'd like to do a combination of, let's just see how it goes now that we have a lot more umbrellas out there. And then, potentially have, it sounds expensive, but I don't think it is, a shade study where somebody, if we're talking to somebody about shade, what additional could we do if we determine that something additional is needed? So I just want to get
Is it shade in general or around the bar?
mostly around the bar area, I think, for starters.
Well, if looking into these things now, they can become budget items.
Well, that's precisely, I'm just sensitizing you all to that because I think the fencing is an issue, what we have out there right now. I know it was a big number, it's $21,000, but what we have is kind of at the end of its life. So I think we need to think about that a little bit more. I know you say it's not, but some of it's in pretty rough shape, the fencing in front. Have you looked at it? It's pretty rough.
Yeah, I just remember the review study, there were pieces that needed to be done, but this looks like almost a wholesale replacement.
I think it is.
And so that would be my question, because in the
Okay.
reserve study, they said that for many years, the fence was just fine.
Okay, fair enough. We
No,
can
no.
look at that.
It's on the agenda.
And then, since we're on the subject of spending money, I think we will
You
down.
weren't until you brought it up.
Love to spend money. No, but I think we need to be planful. And we have 50% of the furniture out there now is older, so we will need to think about how we go for the remaining chunk of the furniture that has not yet been replaced. So as we get into, for example, talking about budget for the next year or the year after, we're gonna need to think about that.
It's in the reserve study further out,
Okay,
so there's no money in the reserve in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it or couldn't do it,
okay.
just so
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know.
So this is really just a way of, floating. I want to keep that stuff on the radar so that we actually, have a plan to get the project
I
completed.
appreciate that,
Yeah.
but I think our radar right now has got
Absolutely. Oh,
is
hey, I'm
where we
there.
end up with the storm
I'm
damage and
there,
what we get reimbursed for.
Yeah, but I don't want to have this end up under the
No, it
dramatic,
won't.
just keeping it, yeah.
You see it every day out there.
Cool.
I agree, the new stuff looks so much better than the old stuff, but
Yeah,
can't do
absolutely.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So any questions on any of those things?
Now, before we leave it, though, I think we have to say certainly a thank you to Steve Kleinglass, who put his
Yes.
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears into this.
The whole committee.
For- Yeah, and it's a benefit for the entire community.
Was the budget 350 for this? 250.
No, the number that was discussed, my recollection is closer to 250.
248 or something, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
it was
thought.
just under 250.
But then, you know, furniture was not included in that.
Yeah.
and,
Right.
Facilities got involved, and so that, with the umbrellas that we purchased and the tables that were purchased, that came up later.
No, that's fine, I just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you know, but
before we talk about more pool furniture, we
Right.
already spent this.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I think, you know, to your question, Cheryl, you know, this is kind of an all-in. So, you know, Jeff and Julie, I think, did a really good job of picking out, you know, the barware and some of the other smalls where people, it's a really nice experience as opposed to going to, you know, a tiki bar on the beach where you get the squishy plastic glass that, you know, that just breaks. So I wanted to have an all-in.
Yeah.
Cool, all right.
Good.
That's that.
We want to go back to item 1, F1.
We do have the consideration of the universal access proposal regarding the River Club exterior and pool access gates. Please read item number 6 for your review.
Yeah, so I had asked for this to be brought back up, but I think we had the discussion. What I recommend we need to do is go back and determine what has to happen versus what would be nice to have happen with the fencing. So if you're all right with that, we'll go back and,
You're talking about the facility committee?
So table this for now, and then you'll.
yes,
come back
please.
to it. Okay.
So this, just so I'm clear again, Keith, this quote for the 21.8, is that for all of the fencing around, or this fencing here and this side over here by the lap pool? Those 2 entryways?
Those 2 entryways.
Okay.
You have the main entry and the side, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and
So
I
that's-
believe that you guys wanted a separate entrance for food servers to be able to get in there, to be able to slip food back and forth, so.
Yeah, there was a reconfiguration, right, Jeff, of the back so that the servers can
That's what I was questioning.
Yeah,
their way
so
through.
Keith,
Sure.
it has 44 fence sections. That seems like a lot more than those 2 areas. That's what threw me on this proposal. That sounded like more like the whole fence.
Eight
I
percent.
I thought he was talking about, when I talked to Paul,
I
I
thought
thought
it
he
was
was talking about
feet.
the
It
entire
says
fencing.
sections. I just would like clarity on that. I just don't know.
It's not the fencing up against the back area.
What's
No, he may.
the 44 section?
It says 44 sections of 8 posts. That seems like a lot of fence. That's why I was.
Pool tennis, he's got pool tennis in 44,
My understanding was just for the front entrance, that whole fence section across the front. And then, as you come out the gym or go in from past my office and go out, that section of fence along the lap pool.
Yeah.
And then that little gate that's right there that separates the 2. And then you got that other gate that go out into the pool with. So if that's, I don't know how, that's
Can you
what I
just
thought.
double check with them on what they mean with the 44 section?
You bet.
Because that's what's throwing us off.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Is
assumed
any
it
of
was
this related to the hurricane?
No.
Or this is all ours? This is us?
This is all ours.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Good, good.
Did that one gate get secured that Ernest was talking
Yes.
about?
Yes, we put up a thing.
Child proof
Fob
lock.
lock.
Child proof, a leader.
Child proof lock, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and so those are, so that, from what Paul had said, that alleviates the liability of just having it open the gate. You have to be able to reach up and grab it and pull it and open it up.
Okay.
Until we get, the new, that stuff that's on there that for when you get a new board, because that's fried now too, right? All that guts will go back on the new stuff,
Yeah, that's what he said.
so.
Okay. Thank you.
We now have item number G, the discussion regarding resident survey. Jill, you requested for this item to be added to the agenda.
Yeah, I think you all probably have, I don't know if you have copies of the strategic plan or you want it, but I wanted to just talk about, how the survey is going to get done. I know that Vesta has said that they can do do the survey. But the strategic plan I think specifically had called for a professional outside third party to do the survey. So I wanted to just maybe have a discussion about that, or maybe we defer this. I don't know whether we just defer the discussion until we see the draft coming from Vesta, but I think there are some really critical things that we need from the survey, which the strategic plan calls for having a focus on dining. Because, you know, we need to, in my opinion anyway, we need to end up with survey results that answer questions on why residents don't use, not just do you use it or not, but if you're not using it, why don't you use it? You know, we need to understand that.
When will we have the draft survey?
You said in the next 10 days.
That will
Okay.
be 10 days.
Okay,
Okay, so by
So
the
we'll
next
have it
meeting.
before,
yeah, okay. You know, demographics and things like that, we need to be able to plan with it. I think that's, you know, I think that's a critical thing. You know, because I think it has to be able to result in
Yeah.
something that
So
we can
we said-
operationalize.
we
and
said
you
in
can
the plan,
operationalize.
Each January, conduct a survey of residents' views of the importance, effectiveness, and future needs of our amenities done by a professional source through our amenities management company.
Right.
So we source it, it's tasked for Vesta to do, but using a professional, now whether that's somebody within the Vesta organization or outside is their choice, as long as they are a professional who does surveys of this nature, not just you all sitting around making up your own questions. We can do that.
Yeah, because I'm going to be a little bit critical here, because I looked at the West Shore Yacht Club survey, and that's not going to help us. Something like that's not going to help us. We need something that can be operationalized. It can't be general, and we can't have questions sprinkled around. It really has to give us something that we can actually, you know, well, you can actually take to operationalize.
But you gotta be careful, and, you know, it can be so open-ended that you get, you know, 2,500 different suggestions on dining, and you just can't do
Oh,
it.
I completely agree, but
So-
that's where the devil is in the details.
But-
Yeah.
I agree with you, and that's why we've gotta, if it's balanced between, here's what's important to us,
Mhm,
and then here's our suggestions, or here's how we feel about these other things.
mhm.
Because you can say, I think dining on Saturday night is vitally important. And then when you go to, I should use a different example. Redoing the tennis courts is vitally important, but if you also ask, how important is tennis to me? And I rate it low.
Right.
And 2,400 people rate it low, that tells you something.
Mhm.
So it's important to 200 people, less than 10% of the community, but the rest of us don't think it's highly important. So that helps us prioritize
Yeah,
where we put our budget money.
yeah.
So it's just as much for us as it is for Vesta or anybody else.
And I think for me, it'll be important to see the draft survey before I can make too many comments about what we think is missing or what needs to be embellished.
Sure.
And also length of survey. If it's too long, people aren't going to fill it
Right,
out.
that's
So
right.
You got to be careful that
Yeah.
you're going to get input. Yeah.
Well, it is, but then there's sections that, I'm hoping I get it, but for years I filled out a survey at another club, and it is lengthy. But if, for example, if you don't play tennis, you can skip the tennis section, or if you have no comment about it.
So that's a really
So-
important comment for the draft. I think that's really
Well,
important. I don't want to
I've talked to
comment
them.
on it if I haven't. Yeah.
I've given my opinion, and I hope I get the survey. It usually comes out about now. If I can pass it on, but it's to me, it's always well done because it balances what's important to residents versus what everybody wants or doesn't want. Because you can get, it's like how we respond. You get an email from somebody, and then we jump through hoops. Well, that's
Right.
one person's opinion out of 2,600 residents. So how high should we jump? You know,
Yeah.
it's just-
No, I get it. I think we'll talk about it when we get the draft, but I think it should ultimately result in, us being able to set goals and expectations, so that it becomes hopefully a virtuous cycle. So that was really all. I just wanted to add those additional thoughts in. So thank you for indulging me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee appointments?
Committee appointments. Yes. So Keith did circulate another communication regarding vacancies. For the committees that do have vacancies, I did send the board a PDF containing the new ones that actually expressed their intents. There wasn't a big major change to what I had originally sent. Cheryl, did you want to go first?
Certainly. I'll start with, I'd make a motion on the landscape committee to appoint Kit Briggs as a new member to that committee.
I'll second that.
Question.
Yes.
So Joe Spalina applied for reappointment.
Mhm.
Is it the same, that position, or is it?
No, it's a
or is it
different,
In addition to?
We had one member that did not apply for reappointment, and that was Julie
Okay.
Salerno. And so Kit Briggs did apply. I had a long conversation with him. And, so that's why I'm moving to add him to the committee.
It's a him.
Yes, it's a him.
There was no bio.
And that's because there was a
I'm always amazed at people
conversation.
that submit their name for consideration and they don't tell you anything about themselves.
What are you gonna call them?
I called
Yeah.
him, I had a long conversation with him. He's served on these kinds of committees before in other communities. His biggest concern was he is not here all year long, just like a lot of us. And I said, we have 2 meetings we don't have in the summer anyway, so as long as he's here for the rest of the meetings, it should be okay. He can miss 4. So, yeah, we talked about all of that. And so he was interested in participating and helping the community be more beautified.
Good, sounds good.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye. Now, did you include Joe Spalina in that, or?
Yes, I had a conversation with him as well.
Okay, so. we
So are
just
you going to
approved 2 people.
nominate?
Or no, Joe, the reappointments.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah,
vote.
yeah. I'm sorry, I thought in the decision.
No,
That's
it's
why I
fine.
asked you
Um,
if it was one position or 2.
No, so do I need a second motion then to reappoint Joe Spalina to the landscape committee?
And if there's
Okay.
any others that are being reappointed, or is it just him?
He's the only one that I know of.
Okay. We want to do social and dining,
Yes.
being that you're up?
Yes, for social and dining.
Wait.
Oh, we need a
have
second.
to-
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so that was my
Second.
motion on that.
Second, Joe.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. For social and dining, I would like to make a motion to reappoint 3 members who have all indicated their interest in serving on the committee in a continuing fashion. Those are Libby Ford, Joe Brown, and Sarah Quinn.
Second. Does that fill a committee?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Did you have any other, Cheryl? Or is
Nope,
that it?
that's it.
Jill, did you have?
Yeah, so actually, before we get to the appointment, I think there's somebody whose resignation we never accepted. Mark Kissinger had done some checking, and I think Lynn Cisco had resigned from the committee late last year. I don't think that there was ever a motion to accept Lynn's resignation officially. She still shows up as an official member. So I'd like to make the motion that we accept Lynn Cisco's resignation from the facilities committee.
I'll second that. Do we need to vote?
We do.
Okay, all those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
And then, second thing I'd like to do is, I'd like to put forward Bob Crane. Bob worked for Cummins Incorporated for 20 years. He's He's a CPA, bachelor's in accounting, and he has also done quite a bit of work with a homeowners association, his own homeowners association, where he used to live up north or northerly from here. So he brings a great background. So I'd like to nominate Bob Crane to join the Facilities Advisory Committee.
Do you have other nominations as well?
No.
How many openings? do you have?
Well, I wanted to get to that because we have seven members in a charter. But I wanted to talk to you all about reducing the number of committee members to 5 from 7. I think we had talked about it when Steve was still on the board, but we did not actually carry that all the way out, and that's something that the committee had decided they wanted to do.
So does the charter say it has to be 7 or?
The charter says
up
there
to
are
7?
7. The charter says
Doesn't
there
it
are
say
7.
up to 7?
Well, the charter says consists of 7,
So then it's 7.
so then it's 7. So the intent then, because there are currently 4 members, would be to appoint Bob to make it 5, but I would also need to change the charter, which I think would be a separate motion, is that right? Should I make that motion first, or does it matter?
I think a separate motion to amend the charter would be
Do
appropriate.
that first?
Well, you're already, we need a second for your first motion,
Okay.
which was to appoint Bob Crane.
Right, okay.
I'll second that.
And why do you want to reduce the size?
Well, why don't we take care of this first?
Oh, sorry, which one are we doing first?
Bob Crane.
Bob
We're
Crane.
appointing Bob Crane.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Wasn't he open to hearing?
What's that?
Yes.
So, I don't know if you wanted copies of the
Dating myself, Keith.
charter or
I
not.
remember
Oh, I get it. Doesn't look like him though.
them.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while. And one of the challenges was ending up with a quorum. And we found it was, mathematically, we kind of figured out it was just easier. We'd end up with a smaller quorum number needed if we brought the committee down to 5 members from 7. It's a very, very active community, but we do have one person who, Bob Raffato, who does go back up north for, generally speaking, 6 months out of the year. So that was really largely the reason for it, was so that the need for a quorum would be 3 as opposed to 4, which just had become a bit of a challenge. That way we could vote to have Bob participate by phone. So that was really the intent of lowering the number of people on the committee.
I have no problem.
Rich, wasn't this one of the ones, there were 2 committees I remember where the original amount of committee members was increased because the committee members didn't know that they had to reapply for their positions.
One
And
of
there
them-
were 2 committees, I think one was pool and fitness, where the amount of committee members was increased, but was facilities also. One where originally it was 5 members, and it was increased to 7
I think
because
we
of,
joined 2 committees together. We
Yeah.
joined,
but there was a point where we increased the size of the committee because of that issue.
Yes.
But I don't think the intention was to continue with the 7.
I remember
just
this.
don't
I
remember.
remember.
I don't think it was facilities, because I've been on, basically
Okay.
been
I
on
remember
facilities
which
since
committee, but I
2019.
remember that.
Okay.
Dining and
Situation.
social is 7 members, which I thought was interesting.
dining is, yes. It was my feeling, when we established the finance committee, one of the things I put in there was, I think it says 5. I did not want 7 because of the same issues that Jill has brought up. Much more difficult, even though it's only one person, one
Sounds silly,
body.
right?
Sometimes it's very difficult to get a quorum, especially in summer months. So that's why I wanted 5 on the committee, and that, I think, that worked very well with the finance
Agreed.
committee. So I certainly support 5 on the committees. But I know Ernest likes 7. He has said that a couple of times here. He likes 7 on
Brackets.
racket sports because he feels as though they represent a variety of opinions, be it pickleball, be it tennis,
Sure.
on and on and on. And I understand that.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I would agree with you on 500.
Okay. And a procedural question, I guess, for you, Belinda. In the charter, it says the committee meets on the first Monday of each month. We are intending to change that to Tuesday, and the reason is we need Jeff there, but he's actually, believe it or not, he's entitled to a day off. So that would at least allow him not to be stuck.
But what if the charter said the committee meets monthly? And then
Sure, yeah.
you don't have to put the day of the week.
Sure, okay.
And then, because that could change from year to year depending on whatever.
And so then if we change that, and that creates a much better solution, do we need, is that a board level thing to change the charter? I guess it is, and it's not.
Well, you would need to just vote on whatever changes you're going to make to the charter today, and then we will make the changes and
Okay.
recirculate the charter.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I'm going to make the motion that we make two changes to the Facilities Advisory Committee charter. The first is changing the number of members from 7 down to 5, and then under meetings, just to say the committee meets monthly. When a quorum of, and it would be 3 committee members is physically present. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Any discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any other committee appointments?
Now you're full.
Yeah, we're full.
Okay.
We do not have any consent items or business items. Supervisor requests or comments? Are there any supervisor requests or comments?
Comcast is going to be working, they worked yesterday and they're going to be working the next 2 Sundays in order to move along on their work so they can do the final hookups to the houses. I got a call on that, asked how I felt about it, and I made the decision that it would be fine for yesterday plus the next 2 Sundays, so just so that you're aware.
Well, as the liaison to the POA, attended the last POA meeting, and I'm happy to report that rat traps are back.
Don't call them rat traps, they're bait stations.
Rat traps, yeah, bait station, but I'm just quoting the charter. So they went back to the old policy. Outstanding. If you're interested, I'll just say they added money for the traffic study that they are co-financing to include a review of the Santec study that Neil had done. Laurel Road update, apparently that's going to start late 23 and be done by early 2025. Let's see, and you should know this, the traffic hawk has been reprogrammed.
Oh.
So it now can catch you going through stop signs in addition to
I
speeding.
need to tell them I'm blowing.
But you can roll through the stop sign up to 3 miles an hour. Unfortunately, Ernest isn't here to advise his wife about that. But I won't go any further than that because we're on the record. Those are the important things.
Any other supervisor requests or comments?
I have one, and that is for landscape committee. There was apparently discussion about the POA wanting to add a landscape position to join the CDD committee. And I need some guidance on that, but I was thinking if anything, they could be a liaison, but not a voting member, since they're 2 completely different organizations. Or should we just let them come in public comment? What have the other committees done if that's been a request? That's my question.
Just so I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I'm trying to understand the
The
question.
POA is saying they want to appoint somebody to the landscape committee?
Right, to be a voting member on the landscape committee to start working together. I didn't think that was a good idea, but I thought, do we want to allow them a liaison, non-voting liaison? That could participate.
They're public meetings.
Anybody can come.
Anybody can come.
But I think they want to be able to participate in the whole meeting rather than the 3-minute comment, or should we just restrict them to the 3-minute comment?
The landscape committee is part of the CDD. It is not a part of the POA.
Thank you.
And no, my opinion, and I think everybody should agree with this, this is a CDD committee. They are entitled to send a liaison. They are encouraged to send a liaison. but not a voting member.
Can you help
That
me
was my
understand
answer,
why?
I just, so I
Why they
wasn't.
want to do it?
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you why they want to do it. They'd have to explain that.
I think one of the reasons is there has been some discussion about who's responsible for the monuments. And I think that part of that got kind of intertwined. It doesn't matter, they want to work together, but it doesn't make sense because we're not even over the same area. So my initial answer was no. I was just checking myself to make sure that there wasn't some precedent
I
there.
wondered if it was Florida friendly or that kind of stuff, so, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, okay.
Then can I speak throughout the whole POA meeting as a liaison? Non-voting?
No, I didn't even go as far as liaison. I just went as far as they can come. It's a public meeting. They can comment for 3 minutes.
Andy, I've corrected my comments, aren't I, Julie?
Of course, I have something to say. No, it's really quick. I will have a draft newsletter for you all. I didn't want to do it when Ernest wasn't here, so,
For you all?
y'all, I'll send it out before the next, board meeting, including to you two, I think. And then, we'll see what you think,
Okay, great.
and we'll take it from there.
Cool. Wait.
I'm sure.
Any other supervisor requests or comments? It is 12:15 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move, we adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Meeting adjourned at 12:15 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.